Hello, it is Sunday, February 22nd, and the fifth day of Lent. This morning I got up at 6 something, early 6 o'clock, and got ready and did my hour meditation, and it was good and fruitful, I suppose, and pretty similar to the last few days of got locked in for a good 30-ish minutes, and then the other 30 are a little harder, but yeah, definitely getting easier. And I'm starting to remember things about my early meditation season in 2020, and just pieces of that just coming back. And one thing I want to try tomorrow is using headphones, because right now I'm playing my Tibetan sound bowl soundtracks on my surround sound, which is it's great. But I want to try, if I'm in headphone land, if I can go even deeper inside, because right now I feel like I'm locking in, and I'm focused, I'm in the moment, and I'm breathing. But just this morning, as I was remembering the deep spaces I would fall into, and I was always wearing my headphones, and so there was a bit of a sensory deprivation that, all things are part of the meditation, but the just going into headphone land, and the only thing I'm just like, it eliminates anything that could possibly pull me out as far as sound goes. And I just want to try that tomorrow. So after that, went to church. Had a good day at church. I feel like it was immediately evident, the fruit of the last few days, and even meditating before going, of I felt much more present to being there, present to the moment. And whenever I would get into conversation with anybody, I was just there, versus anxious in whatever way anxiety manifests. But just, I wasn't anxious, and I wasn't looking for the end of the conversation, or trying to get out of it, or those are the ways that I suppose anxiety manifests itself in that environment, is just not being able to just be there in that conversation, because I'm thinking about getting out of it, essentially. And then we had lunch with the staff afterward, and that was also good. I didn't eat I didn't eat the pizza, and just fasted through that. My story part, I feel like, went really well. It's part of these conversations, it's easier to have without Pastor Matt there, because it's saying things, telling stories that involve him and about him, and even telling parts of his story for him. And so there's always that kind of on my mind, because I know, and he knows, that this is somebody else telling a part of his story. So automatically it's different. Two, it's abbreviated for the context, which means the it's not the truth. It's the truth in essence, but it's not the truth in specifics. Timeline, or like, whether it was days or weeks, or you know all those types of things. So trying to like tell the story in an engaging way that doesn't get lost in the details because they don't matter, and not getting trapped, like getting my words trapped in making sure or thinking about that, it was a month or whatever, and just letting it be what it is. So yeah, but it was good. Then I was going to go to Mercury Lounge and Bluegrass Brunch, and just kind of keep fasting through that, have maybe a sparkling water. But I guess because it's not warm enough to really be outside, they had capped the door, and there was a line waiting to get in. And so I just came home, and I ended up eating my meal for the day. And one thing I'm trying to decide is if I'm going to mini Easter, because in Lent, the 40-day fast technically doesn't include Sundays, because it's 40. When it starts till Easter is closer to 50 days, because every Sunday you have a mini Easter, or you break the fast, and then you fast. You're on Lent fast the other 6 days. I already know that I'm not breaking. I'm not on Sundays. I am not fully breaking the fast. And right now, I haven't broken the fast in any way, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to. In past years, it's like whenever I was just giving up drinking for Lent, and I don't remember the exact specifics, but one of the things was drinking. It was like I would still drink on Sunday when I go to Mercury Lounge, but then I wouldn't drink any other day. I know this year, like I'm still going to be meditating. I haven't journaled today, now that I think about it. I'm obviously doing the video journal. So that begs the question of if I need to wake up even earlier on a Sunday to do the hour meditation and journal before I go to the church, or I have time at the church that I could journal, because there's basically, when I get there, there's the entire rehearsal time that I'm in the room, but I could be in the room and journaling. Yeah, there's that. So I know I'm not fasting from the things that I've added, and I'm not going to drink soda or drink alcohol, on the off days. The only thing I'm considering is if I'm going to only eat one meal on Sundays. And to have like a mini Easter, a mini feast, a mini celebration of like celebrating the last 6 days and looking forward to the next. The other reason for that is a practical reason of I get my meals mail ordered, and I get 18 meals, and that's not enough meals to eat 2 every day, but it's also too many meals to eat 1 every day. So there's a few days that I have to eat 2, or they're going to go to waste. So the calories fluctuate, per meal. Some of them are 900 calories, some of them are in the 700s. And so to on some days it wouldn't be eating 2 meals, it would just be eating two of those at the same time for one meal, to get the calorie count up, because only eating 700 calories in a day is obviously it's doable, but it's not enough. Even eating two of those at 1400 calories is still below, I would assume, what my like metabolic rate is. So regardless, I'm still under eating every day. Yeah, those are just things going through me. I don't want to. I don't want to do. I'm like, I'm committed to this and I'm committed to the process. So it's not really about like, uh, well, what about can I? What about this? Can I? It not like that. It's just trying to figure out what's my. How do I be intentional through everything? And I committed to the Lent fast. Part of the Lent fast is to feast on Sunday and to break the fast. And I know I'm not going to break the fast on most of it, but I might have a second meal on Sunday. Yeah, I just haven't decided. I thought I might try reading this really good section from the Brothers Karamazov, and I'm just going to start because I don't know if there's enough time. From the Discourse and Teachings of Elder Zoshima, something concerning the Russian monk and his possible significance. Fathers and teachers, what is a monk? In the enlightened world, the word is pronounced in our day by day with mockery, and by some even an expletive. And the more time passes, the more this is so. It is true, oh, it is true, that there are in the monkhood also many parasites, lovers of the flesh, voluptuaries and brazen vagabonds. Worldly men of progressive education point to this. You are, they say, idlers and useless members of society, shameless beggars, you live upon the efforts of others. Yet even so, how many meek and humble ones there are in the monkhood, thirsty for seclusion and ardent prayer and silence. These are pointed to less and are even passed over without comment altogether. And how surprised would the same worldly men be if I told them that from these meek souls who thirst for secluded prayer may once again issue the salvation of the Russian land. For verily they are being prepared in silence for an hour and a day and a month and a year. Meanwhile, in their seclusion, they are preserving the image of Christ in well apportioned and undistorted form, in the purity of God's truth. And it is in it as it was handed down to them by the most ancient fathers, apostles, and martyrs. And when the need arrives, they will show that image to the wavering truth of the world. And when the need arrives, they will show that image to the wavering truth of the world. Great is this thought. This star will shine in the east. Such is my opinion concerning the monk. And is there any falseness in it or pride? Go look among the secular and at all the world that exalts itself above God's people. Have not God's image and his truth become distorted therein? What they have in science and so many words. What they have in science, and in science only that which is subject to the senses, the spiritual world, on the other hand, is loftier half of man's being, is rejected altogether, cast out with a certain triumph, even hatred. The world has proclaimed freedom, particularly of late, and yet do Do we see in this freedom of theirs nothing but servitude and suicide? For the world says, you have needs, so satisfy them, for you have the same rights as the wealthiest and the most highly placed of men. Do not be afraid to satisfy them, but even multiply them. That is the present day teaching of the world. In that, too, they see freedom. And what is the result of this right to the multiplication of needs? Among the rich, solitariness and spiritual suicide. And among the poor, envy and murder. For while they have been given rights, they have not been afforded the means to which to satisfy their needs. Assurance is offered that as time goes by, the world will become more united, that it will form itself into a brotherly communion by shortening distance and transmitting thoughts through the air. Alas, do not believe in such unification of men. In constructing freedom as the multiplication and speedy satisfaction of needs, they will distort their own nature, for they engender within themselves the many senseless and stupid desires, habits, and most absurd inventions. They live solely for envy, the love of the flesh, and for self-conceit. To have dinners, horses and carriages, Rank and attendants who are slaves is already considered such a necessity that they will even sacrifice their lives, their honor, and philanthropy in order to satisfy that necessity, and will even kill themselves if they cannot do so. Among those who are not rich, we see the same thing, and among the poor, envy and the frustration of needs are at present dulled by drunkenness. That's a good line. Among those who are not rich, we see the same thing, and among the poor, envy and the frustration of needs are at present dulled by drunkenness. But soon, in place of alcohol, it will be blood upon which they grow intoxicated, and that they are being led. I ask you, is such a man free? I knew one fighter for the cause who himself told me that when in prison he was deprived of tobacco, so tormented that by his deprivation that he almost went out and betrayed his cause in order that he should be given some tobacco. And after all, it is a man such as this who says, I'm going to fight for mankind. Well, where can such a man go, and of what is he capable? Of a quick action, perhaps, but he will not endure long. And it is a small wonder that in a place of freedom they have found slavery, and in a place of service to brotherly love and the unity of mankind they have found isolation and solitariness. As my mysterious visitor and teacher told me in my youth. And so it is that in the world the idea of service to mankind, of the brotherhood and inclusiveness of men, is fading more and more, and in truth this thought is now encountered with mockery. For how can he detest from his habits this slave? Where can he go if he is so accustomed to satisfying his countless needs which he himself has invented? Solitary is he, and what concern can he have for the whole? And they have reached a point where the quantity of objects they amass is even greater, and their joy even smaller. The monkish path is a different matter. Obedience, fasting, and prayer are even the objects of laughter, and yet it is only in them that the path to true and genuine freedom is contained. I cut off from myself my superfluous and unnecessary needs, humble and scourge my vain and proud will with obedience, and thereby attain, with God's help, freedom of spirit, and altogether with its spiritual gaiety. Which of them is more capable of raising aloft a great idea and going to serve it, the isolated rich man or the freed one? Freed from the tyranny of objects and habits. The monk is reproached for his solitariness. You have withdrawn into solitariness in order to save yourself, living the life of a monk within the monastery walls, and have forgotten the brotherly service of mankind. But we shall see which of them will be the more diligent in the matter of brotherly love. For the solitariness is not ours but theirs, only they do not see it. And from our midst, since olden days, have come leaders of people, so why should they not exist now? The same meek and humble fasters and vowers of silence will rise up and go to accomplish the great task. From the people is the salvation of Russia. As for the Russian monastery, it has from time immemorial been with the people. And if the people are in solitariness, then we too are in solitariness. The people believe in our way, and the unbelieving activist will achieve nothing among us here in Russia, even though he be sincere of heart and genius endowed of mind. Remember this: the people will go to meet the atheist and will conquer him, and there will arise a united Orthodox Russia. Then cherish the people and stand guard over their hearts. In silence, educate them. That is your monkish task, for this people is a bearer of God. So good. I'm surprised that I didn't think I would be able to get that through in the time remaining. But it brings up such good thoughts, and the idea that the world thinks that freedom comes from fulfilling all of their pleasures. Freedom comes from gaining the things, from climbing the ladder to success and having the success, which means power, which means money, and having the money to have the servants, to have the house and the cars, and to have all of these things is to be free, is what modern society tells us. And this is written in a Russian context. So even Eastern society fell prey to materialism. And this still apropos to today, 2026. And this was written in 18 something. 1880 is whenever it was published. And so, 140 plus years ago. And that still today applies, that the richest of men think they have found freedom, yet they seek for more and more and more. This idea that it brings freedom, the American dream, it permeates through to the poor, where the poor also believe that they deserve to have their pleasures and everything that is deserved to them, whenever nobody is deserving of anything and everything is a gift. But instead of the poor finding that what they do have as a gift, they find envy and strife and ultimately bloodthirst, then those at the top are also jealous and envious, and aren't forming a brotherly love that they claim that is what they're working towards. The billionaires, they're working towards the embetterment of the world and the unification of all in making the world better, and ultimately they're only serving out their own selfish desires. And while the progress made by their own selfish desires does bring progress in certain areas, which they use to justify the means in which they are trying to get there, and the people praise them along the way, because ultimately the entire society is brainwashed into the idea that money equals ultimate success. So obviously you're doing it right and you are praised. And the class war is small, but it is real. There are people who see that the billionaire class is the issue, and it's not the political other side. It's those who obtain and keep the majority of the wealth and then use that wealth and power to maintain political power to gain more wealth, and use petty politics to divide everybody into fighting their brother versus fighting them. Um, but that passage was so just beautifully written, that the who is truly free, and they criticized the monk for withdrawing from society and living a solitary life, and they find the monks within the order that aren't living up to the standard and point their fingers at them to disqualify the whole order, versus disqualifying that individual, which that's a microcosm of a macrocosm, of everything that everybody does that's part of racism, that a black man commits a crime and oh, see, I told you, black people are XYZ. Meanwhile, white kids shoot up schools every single day. Oh, I mean, it's just him. I mean, it's not like white people do that. And then vice versa. There's this happens within every scope of life, that people point to an individual's action to disqualify the order. And it happens in the church that so many, it's unfortunate, and it stains the cloth of the church, that there's even one, let alone weekly, some sort of spiritual leader is falls from, grace, or they don't really fall from grace. They have a moral failure, and a public moral failure, and some of them are egregious. Others are, they had an affair, and not that that's not an egregious act and a betrayal of their wife and ultimately the lifestyle that they're leading. But a billionaire having an affair, it doesn't even make back page news. It's not even, it may not even be talked about. But a pastor having an affair, he has put himself in spiritual leadership and is called to a higher standard and calling. And so it's a scandal. And then there's others that genuine, like, I'm losing the most pointed word I'm looking for, like degenerate. There are some that may have not started out climbing the ranks or the power. They may have not started their church or started their ministry in pursuit of what they ended up becoming. Nevertheless, they lived and they created a culture of cover up that allowed them to turn into a degenerate and somebody who was using the Lord's name in vain to hurt people, and sometimes hurt children. And got off on a tangent, but in my last 30 seconds, people point to those to say the whole church is bad and God is bad. God doesn't even, how can God even exist if these degenerates are allowed to be pastors? And, I get it. But there is still those committed to the life, to the order, to brotherly love, and I think that those people win out and love wins.